That Colleagues, we'll be starting in just a moment. I'd like to advise anyone watching this now, if you're having any difficulties, we're requesting that you move your video attention to YouTube. That will be the primary source of public information for this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the 9th meeting of City Council. This is a virtual meeting as well, held during the COVID-19 emergency. City Hall is open to the public with reduced capacity and physical distancing requirements. Meetings can be viewed via live streaming on YouTube. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for council, standing or advisory committee meetings, and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. Colleagues, I'll look for any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Hopkins? Audio, please, or audio, please.
Thank you. I would like to disclose a pecuniary interest on the Civics Works Committee Report 2.1, as my property is very close to the reservoirs.
So noted, thank you. Any other disclosures? Colleagues, I'm declaring a pecuniary interest in respect to 5.1 of the 12th report of the Civic Works Committee, having to do with the deferred matters list related to the properties at 745 and 747 Waterloo Street, as my daughter owns a business located at 745 Waterloo Street. I'm not aware of any recognitions nor confidential matters to be considered in public. Colleagues, I'll look for a motion to move item 4, Council in closed session, and 16th report of Council in closed session to after stage 13 bylaws. I'll look for a mover, please, if I could. Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Van Meerbergen. I'd like to call the vote, please. And colleagues, we'll turn your attention to the screen because we will be voting through eScribe. If there's any issues with that, I'm sure you will let us know. We understand that one colleague may have a challenge in the short term getting logged in, but we will still carry on with the vote.
Councillors Van Holst, Salee, Van Meerbergen, and Kaiabaga.
I vote yay.
Thank you.
This is Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you.
It's Councillor Salee. I'll just vote yay for this vote as I'm just working on my getting in.
Thanks, Councillor Salee.
Councillor Kaiabaga, I vote yay as well.
Thank you. Clerk, have we got everyone now?
Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Audio, please.
Yeah, I'll vote yay.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thanks very much. We're looking now to ensure that everyone will be online for voting shortly. Colleagues, the minutes from the meeting held on October 13th, 2020 is in your package. I will look for a mover, please, and a seconder. Is there a mover? Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Any discussion? Then we'll call the vote.
Councillor Van Holst, Councillor Salee, and Councillor Van Meerbergen.
I'll vote yay. And your worship, I didn't know that I'll be participating on eScribe tonight. It doesn't seem to be working for me in terms of login.
Thank you. If we can't rectify that, we will take your verbal vote. Thank you. Councillor Turner, did you have a question?
Yeah, and perhaps it's of note, the city website, everything is fine with the exception of the council meetings page. And so it's difficult to pull up agenda items, and I'm not sure I can use eScribe to do that, but in order to follow along with it, agendas and minutes, it's a little easier to use the website. So I'm not sure if IT could be notified of that.
I'll let the clerk respond to that. I will tell you, I know we're in the middle of a vote, but that's actually relevant. I would tell you that eScribe does have certain details. I usually use that to follow, but clerk, do you have a response to that?
I'm uncertain as to what the issue is, but we can resend the packet that we sent by email to you on Tuesday, if that's, or on Friday, if that's of any assistance. We'll send that email again.
I thank you through your worship, just raise it for one, the public, and two, for us. We do have the packets. There's alternates for us to use, but for the public, it's not resolving that website web page. The site's resolving, but not the page.
That's noted. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Your worship, I can advise you that we are on a call with eScribe right now, trying to resolve that problem. I apologize, that carried 15-0.
Minutes are carried. Thank you very much. I'll turn your attention to item 6, communications and petitions. We have several. There are 2 communications relating to 1954 Gainsborough Road, 2 communications relating to Meadow Lily Significant Area of the Conservation Master Plan, 1 communication relating to 348 Sunningdale Road, 1 communication relating to 197, 183, and 179 Ann Street, 1 communication relating to London Hydro restructuring. So I will look for a motion to refer those communications to be considered in conjunction with the items on the agenda. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Lewis. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Councillor Van Holst, Councillor Pelosi, and Councillor Kaiabaga.
Councillor Van Holst votes yay.
Councillor Pelosi votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you very much. I'm not aware of any motions of which notice is given, so I'll turn your attention to item 8, the reports. And I will ask councillor Kaiabaga for the 16th report of the Corporate Services Committee, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to put the 16th report of the Corporate Service Committee on the floor. I have not heard from any of my colleagues whether they want to pull any item. So I put the entire report.
Thank you. Does anyone wish any item to be dealt with separately? Seeing none, any comments or questions? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Your Worship. In this particular set of reports, there's something that we've gotten a little bit used to, and that is our annual credit rating. So for the 44th consecutive year, the city has achieved a AAA credit rating. This is a testament to both the work of council over successive councils, as well as our staff to adhering to a long-term fiscal plan. So I wanted to rise today at council to thank our staff for the good work that they do in all aspects of managing the fiscal plan. And at the meeting, I inquired about the stability of this, given the outlook. Municipalities like London have done very well because of their fiscal plan and the way that they've worked. But as the province of Ontario, shifts in its financial positioning, so too, will municipalities. And it's good that we've been backed by provincial and federal governments with support when we needed them. And that has allowed us to maintain our AAA credit rating. So again, we have to thank our provincial and federal partners for the work that they've done in supporting municipalities when they need it, given the fiscal restraints that we have to raise our own revenues. So again, I want to commend our staff and thank our provincial and federal partners for continuing this, and hopefully it will be a trend that continues into the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Squire.
Thank you very much. With regard to the credit rating, I think it's notable that we've had it for 44 straight years, and other municipalities have had triple credit ratings for extended periods of time. I just want to caution us to not use that as the primary or only benchmark as to how responsibly we're acting as a council or others are acting with regard to our budgets. I know that we talk about it every year, but there's many other things that we have to keep in mind as we're moving forward. So yes, we're getting used to it, but I think we should also be looking at other measurements.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Deputy Mayor Helmer to take the chair for a moment, please.
I'll take the chair, and I have the mayor on the list next. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. We've had two council colleagues who have spoken with respect to our AAA credit rating. And while not the only barometer, I think is a testament to the financial strength of this community and how our staff have been so diligent with respect to dealing with this. It will certainly be the basis for many of the decisions that we consider going forward, simply because what it does is I think it gives us strong financial foundations and really speaks to how well run we are internally, notwithstanding COVID and the other issues that we've dealt with. So full marks to our finance team led by Ms. Barbone, and please, we'd ask that you pass on our appreciation as well. Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Audio, please.
I don't have any other speakers on the list. I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers on the list, this has been duly moved, so we will call the question.
Councillor Van Holst and Councillor Hillier.
Van Holst votes yes.
Votes yes, it didn't pop up.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you, Councillor Kaiabaga. I'll turn your attention now to the 12th report of the Civic Works Committee. Councillor Lehman, please.
Thank you. I'll present the 12th report of the Civic Works Committee. I've had no requests for any items to be pulled. Sorry.
Point of order, if I could, Your Worship.
Councillor
Um, with respect to the online agenda piece, my concern here is that the transparency piece to the public. There's no opportunity for the public to be able to follow along with our meeting to understand what we're voting on. I worry about this meeting the test of the open meeting requirements, and I'm not sure if the clerk's able to identify how long it will be before that information is available and resolvable, or if we might be able to take a recess in the meantime, or if this is going to be a long time, then understanding what the implications are of proceeding without that information available to the public.
Thank you. Well, then let's ask the clerk her thoughts.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm respectful of what the councillor is saying. The agenda has been posted since Friday, and we are streaming on YouTube. So there is access to the public, although not as much as we would prefer or usually provide. But we are working on that right now. If council wishes to take a recess, I can look into see how long we think will be. But I just bring to your attention that we are streaming on YouTube.
Councillor Turner?
Hi, yes, thank you through your worship to the clerk. My concern is more the way we procedurally deal with items in a council agenda is basically we take all the items and pull out the ones that we might want to debate, but everything else in there without having some sort of textual reference. When we have people in the gallery, they have a paper agenda, they can take a look at it. When they're watching online, they can reference the online agenda. If that's not there, then the public really has no idea what we're voting on. We are streaming it so people get to watch what we're doing, but they have no touchstone for context of what our deliberation is.
I may ask the clerk to respond in a moment, but I think Councillor Hopkins, were you commenting on the same issue?
No, I was just going to bring to the chair's attention that I have declared a pecuniary interest on 2, which is 2.1.
And we will actually, thank you for that, Councillor Hopkins. As we get to Civic Works, the chair of Civic Works has acknowledged to me we have 2.1 and 5.1 that will be dealt with separately. So thank you for that. Just bear with us a moment, and I'll ask the clerk to respond if there's anything there, and if a recess might be appropriate. Clerk, any thoughts?
Through Mr. Mayor, if it's helpful, I'd be happy to read out the titles of each item that's on the floor for the public, if that's of any assistance.
I think that could be useful. Councillor Turner, does that satisfy the concerns you've expressed?
It sounds like the best we've got. I'm certainly not trying to muddle things. I think it's an important component of transparency of our process that there's some reference to what we're voting about, or the ability for people to be able to find that. I've managed to resolve it on one device at once, but the other devices and the other pages through different networks, I haven't been able to resolve the web pages to get them.
Thank you. I think that's then a reasonable alternative in our next best scenario here. Technology can be our friend, and sometimes less so. So acknowledging that, I'll turn the committee report over to Councillor Lehman, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as I was saying, I've had no request to pull any items. We do have item 2 and item 10, conflict of interest that obviously will be have to be voted on separately. So just wait to see if anyone else has a request.
Does anyone wish any other items beyond 2.1 and 5.1 to be dealt with separately? Seeing none, that means that we will be dealing with items 1 and then 3 through 9. And I'll ask the clerk to read those topics so that people can follow what we will be voting on the consent agenda, please.
The motions that are currently on the floor are related to the 12th report of the Civic Works Committee. Item 1 is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Item 3 is amendments to the traffic and parking bylaw, and it relates to bill number 320. Number 4 is appointment of consulting engineers infrastructure renewal program. Item 5 is Richmond North Recreational Crossing and Pathway Extension Project, detailed design and tendering, appointment of consulting engineer. Item 6 is single source procurement rental car contract. Item 7 is joint occupancy and use agreement, Elgin Middlesex Pumping Station, relates to bill number 312. Item 8 is Vauxhall wastewater treatment plant upgrades, engineering design consultant award. And item 9 is Mud Creek Stormwater Management Project.
Thank you. Any comments or questions with respect to items 1 or 3 through 9? Councillor Cassidy. Audio, please.
Sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, it took me a while to find my mute button. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment on item number 5, which is 2.4 from the committee report, the Richmond North Recreational Crossing and Pathway Extension Project. I just want to just repeat some comments I made at committee. This is an exciting gateway project. It's the near the northernmost limits of our city, and also right on the edge of Ward 5 between 5 and 7. So it's going to provide some of the connectivity between recreational pathways, which is a goal for our city staff and for city council. It has been for some time. It will be an important connection for pedestrians and cyclists and families taking a walk along our northern boundary of the city. It will also provide a regional connection, recreational connection to Middlesex County and their recreational pathway system. So I just want to say how great it is to see this moving forward. It's been going through the process for a number of years, and I want to thank city staff for bringing this report forward to Civic Works Committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions with respect to those items? See none, it's been duly moved. We'll call the question.
Councillor Van Holst and Councillor Squire. Closing the vote, and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman.
I'd like to put item number 2, 2.1, the award of consulting engineering services for detailed design of the Springbank Reservoir 1 and 3 roof membrane replacement and reservoir repairs on the floor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Your Worship, this is Councillor Hopkins.
Yes.
I am able to bring up my recuse button, and I would like to recuse myself.
So noted. Thank you.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 14 with 1 recused, and we believe we're back up on the web stream again.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to put item 10, 5.1, the deferred matters list on the floor.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Councillor Hillier?
Yeah, it's not coming up. I keep hitting the refresh. It's not coming up. I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 14 with 1 recused, and Councillor Hillier will have a staff member reach out to you.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Now I'll turn your attention to the 16th report of the Planning Environment Committee, 8.3 on the agenda. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have not heard from anybody, but I will pull item number 17, which is 4.1 from the committee report, as I voted against that item at committee.
So noted. Any colleagues wish to have any of these dealt with separately? Councillor Hillier.
Actually, just a comment on 15, if I might, 3.4.
That's noted. Thank you. Any other comments or any other items colleagues wish to have dealt with separately? Seeing none, I think I'll go back to the clerk with respect to the items, which will be items 1 through 14 and item 16. If you would, please, clerk.
From the 16th report of the Planning and Environment Committee, on the floor is item 1, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Item 2, changes to the residential development charges grant program for downtown and Old East Village, and it relates to bill numbers 315 and 316. Item 3, draft core area community improvement plan. Item 4 is Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choice Act, and 2019 Bill 197, the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act 2020 information report. Item 5, application 3635 Southbridge Avenue, removal of holding provision, relates to bill number 325. Item 6, application 3575 Southbridge Avenue, removal of holding provision, relates to bill number 326. Number 7, application 1605 Twilight Boulevard, removal of holding provision, relates to bill number 327. Item 8, application 3620 Southbridge Avenue, removal of holding provision, relates to bill number 328. Item 9, application 3740 Southbridge Avenue, removal of holding provision, relates to bill number 329. Number 10, application 1300 Fanshawe Park Road East, Stony Creek South Subdivision Special Provisions. Item 11, application 965 Upper Point Avenue, relates to bill number 330. Item 12, application 1761 Wonderland Road North. Item 13, application 355 Marconi Boulevard, draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendments, relates to bill number 331. Item 14, demolition request for heritage listed property 954 Gainsborough Road. It's my understanding 15 is not currently on the floor. 16 is not currently on the floor. It is, sorry. Item 16, application 348 Sunningdale Road East, relates to bill number 333.
And item 17, the 7th report of the Land Advisory Committee on Heritage, will be dealt with separately. So colleagues, we'll be dealing with 1 through 14 and 16. Any comments or questions, please? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the next item, which is item 17, the 7th report on the London Advisory Committee on Heritage, it had one specific action in there, and I did not vote in favor of the committee recommendation. So I would ask the Vice Chair of the committee, Councillor Turner, if he would put that on the floor.
Before we recognize Councillor Turner, then we'll deal with item 15 separate from that as well. But it's slightly out of order, but we'll go with item 17 first. Councillor Turner?
Your Worship, I'll put item 17 on the floor.
Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you. I just want to comment on why I voted the way I did. So there was a recommendation from the London Advisory Committee on Heritage for 2 properties on Ann Street to be designated heritage properties, and they are currently on the listing. There have been a number of reports over the last few months, although not a formal evaluation report from our heritage planner. So that is what the committee has asked the heritage planner to do, come back to a future planning committee with a formal evaluation report. I felt that the comments and the studies that have been done, both by Latch and in a more informal way by our heritage planner, was enough to merit designation for these properties. There is a planning application that's going through the process right now, not speaking on the merits of that application whatsoever, but solely focused on whether or not these properties merit designation. I felt that we're already there, that we could designate these properties and then deal with the planning application at a future point in time. We have had this situation in the past where we've had whether or not to designate a property at the exact same time as a planning application, and it's been difficult to focus on one or the other without conflating the two. There's nothing that prevents future development on a property, even though there is a designated heritage structure there. But I felt that at this point in time, if we could focus solely on the heritage aspect of the property and then deal with the planning application down the road, that would have been my preference at the time. So that was why I voted against the committee recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions with respect to item 17? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Councillor Lewis, Councillor Van Meerbergen, and Councillor Pelosa.
Pelosa is a yes.
Yeah, just having difficulty scrolling down to the actual submit button here, so I will vote yay manually.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 13-2.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Cassidy.
And my apologies, Your Worship. I didn't realize that 15 was pulled because I thought Councillor Hillier only wanted to comment on it. So that's why I thought it was included in the rest of the report.
Well, that might be on me, but I did pull it separately. So any comments or questions on item 15, the Meadow Lily Environmentally Significant Area Conservation Master Plan? Councillor Hillier.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to comment to say thank you to staff and everyone who's been involved in this. I know the neighborhood is very thrilled to see the added protection for the ESA. I'm hoping we can expand upon them in the future. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councillor Pelosa and Councillor Hillier.
I vote yes. Sorry, she's got me on the phone right now.
Yeah, I voted yes too, but it's just not going anywhere. Pelosa.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 14-1.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. So I'll turn your attention now to 8.4, the 17th report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee. Deputy Mayor Helmer, please.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I think I can put the whole report on the floor except for 2.5, which I voted against. That was the implementation working group. I'll need someone else to move that. And then 3.2, which is the water wastewater rates. There was a bit of a divided vote on that one. I'm not aware of anything else that needs to be pulled, but let me know if there is.
Councillor Turner, do you wish anything else dealt with separately?
No, those were the ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items to be dealt with separately? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to report out the items that will be up for vote, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The matters on the floor related to the 17th report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee. Item 1, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Item 2, Strategic Plan 2019 Performance Report. Item 3, Community Diversity and Inclusion Strategy Leadership Table Recommendations, Progress and Next Steps. Item 4, 2021 Development Charges Update covering report and proposed bylaw relates to Bill number 318. Item 5, Annual Recognition Awards. Item 6, Amendment Terms of Reference Committee of Management for Dearness Home relates to Bill number 310. Item 8, Amendments to the Consolidate Fees and Charges Bylaw relates to Bill number 313. Item 10, London Hydro Proposed Corporate Restructuring. Item 11, Appointment of Deputy Mayor relates to Bill number 311. Item 12, Committee Appointments. And item 13, Master Accommodation Plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Worship, would you also pull number 10?
Thank you. For the benefit of our viewers and listeners, that's London Hydro Proposed Corporate Restructuring that's being pulled. So colleagues, look for any comments you might have with respect to items 1 through 6, 8, and 11 through 13. Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Councillor Van Holsten, Councillor Hopkins. Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you, colleagues. I'll turn your attention to Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. Deputy Mayor.
Perhaps Councillor Cassidy, as the chair of the working group, wants to put this one on the floor.
Councillor Cassidy.
I'm happy to put this one on the floor. I want to thank staff and all the members of the working group, both councillors and those members from the London Transit Committee for the work they've done. It's true we did not meet a lot while during this term of council, but the meetings we did have were important and informative, and I think it's time that city staff move forward with the projects at hand.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councillor Van Holst.
Yes, thank you, if I may. An interesting thing happening. We heard that London is going to be one of the cities that's getting the 5G technology. And of course, that makes quite a number of other technologies
Sorry,
possible.
Councillor Van Holst, we're on the item 2.5, the Rapid Transit Implementation Working Group. Are you still, is that where you're speaking to?
Yes, that's what I'm speaking to.
Apologies.
You know, I recall voting against the BRT. One of the reasons was that future technologies were on their way, and that might have an impact on how we proceed. And I see those technologies are very close at hand. And so we may well want to make a little change in our direction. So I think it would be worth keeping this committee. And that's the reason I voted with Deputy Mayor on this item. So I'll vote against this again.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 11-4.
Deputy Mayor Helmer.
I'll put item 3.2. This is the water and wastewater rates. Several colleagues voted against this one.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Turner.
Just briefly reiterate my concerns with the reduction in the taxation rate for the wastewater services. This carries over from the multi-year budget that we set last year. It's the bylaw and the motion here are just continuing that and identifying some of the nuances associated for adjustments since that time. But I still think it's important that we maintain our 3% taxation rate that we'd identified in the last term in order to be able to more quickly address sanitary sewer bypasses into our water courses.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Closing the vote and the motion carries 12-3.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
I'll put item 10, and sorry to Councillor Van Holst for not pulling that one. You did circulate the amendment in advance. This is the London Hydro restructuring, which we discussed at some length at committee and was passed unanimously.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Van Holst.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And of course, I agree that council needs to be confident they've done their due diligence in looking at the alternative models for having an affiliate. I do want to tell you my concern, and that concern has really got to do with a lot of good news. But the affiliates for London Hydro are affiliates kind of like a plane landing with some connections already scheduled. And my concern is that we want to make sure that this process of getting the report back happens in a timely manner. And some of the things that could be impacted by it are a contract with West 5. Should this be delayed too much, we would have to abandon that, which would be unfortunate because we spent 2 years working on this exciting and innovative green initiative. Be shame if that was canceled. Something else is interesting is coming up. I made reference to it a little earlier today, is that the 5G technology is coming out. Now, interesting to note that utilities are only allowed to charge $40 for access to a pole. So, and these technologies are going to be put on many of our hydro poles. But what we expect to happen is the companies will come, they'll buy up the rights to all this access and then resell them at multiple times the $40. And if we have our own affiliate in place, it would be very easy for us to transfer the rights to the affiliate and double the money. So there's a timely issue. The next one I want to tell you about is just give you a sense of where London Hydro is playing. I've mentioned before that we were recognized at the White House for our efforts in the green button, but we're not only selling our technology to municipalities in Ontario, but other provincial utilities have approached London Hydro asking us to bid on their RFPs because they like where we are, what we have to offer, and how we're at the leading edge of this. And one of these contracts is $3 million up front and $500,000 annually after that. So you can see that this affiliate could very well, very quickly become quite the going concern. And my concern is that we want to make sure that this process of getting to that point, whatever affiliate structure we use, is not delayed too much. So, I believe we want to be able to have that happen by the first week in February. So if I may, through you, Your Worship, could I ask staff if I know London Hydro is willing to cooperate with any information they can provide. Do we believe that we would be able to get this report back in time for an affiliate to be created by, say, the first week of February?
Ms. Barbone?
Your Worship, it's Ms. Livingston.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and through you, provided that London Hydro can give us the information we require to develop the analysis around the alternate option by the end of November, we could certainly meet that timeline.
Thank you. Councillor Van Hulst?
Well, Your Worship, that's really exciting news to me. And so at this point, I was going to have a motion putting some direction to that. However, I think we can just all work as a team. And I know the direction we have right now is probably satisfactory. But with that, with that assurance, and I'm happy to assure that London Hydro will do everything they can to meet this deadline. We'll have an affiliate running up early in Q1 with some exciting new prospects to report. So thank you, Your Worship, and a special thanks to Ms. Livingston as well and the staff.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions with this item? Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Just very briefly, I don't want members of the public to get the sense that it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to be restructuring London Hydro. What's in front of us is that we're going to have a report come back with analysis around options, and then we're going to talk about it, and maybe we're going to make changes, and maybe we're not. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a restructuring, or even what that would look like. I certainly understand where Councillor Van Hulst is coming from, and I've heard from London Hydro about why they want to restructure and what they're trying to accomplish, but it's not already decided, and I don't want people to get the sense that it is.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Councillor Salee, Deputy Mayor Helmer, and Councillor Hillier. Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Helmer. There are no deferred matters nor inquiries that I'm aware of. Under item 12 of your agenda, we have an emergent motion. I will call on Deputy Mayor Helmer, please.
Thank you, colleagues. So the first step is to seek leave to introduce the emergent motion, and I'm just going to speak very briefly to why it's emergent. The province is moving to amend the Municipal Elections Act to revoke a regulation that allows ranked ballots, and it's already through second reading and is heading very quickly to some kind of decision. So we don't really have time to take it to committee and deal with it at our next council meeting. If we're going to provide input to the province, we need to do it tonight.
So I'll look for a motion to leave to deal with this emergent motion moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Kaiabaga. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Deputy Mayor Helmer. Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to put the motion that you've seen in the letter. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read it on the floor. Councillor Morgan and I have tried to divide it up into sections because we are anticipating that people may have different views on different parts of what's included in the letter. So if we want to vote on things separately, hopefully it's been divided up in a way that's convenient for people. I'm going to reserve my comments, I think, on the substance of the motion till the end. I just want to put it on the floor right now.
Thank you, and you have a seconder in Councillor Morgan. Thank you very much. So let's open this now up for comments or questions. Councillor Turner, thank you.
Your Worship, thank you. Thank you both to the mover and seconder for bringing this forward, especially in a timely manner. It is of an urgent matter. It's very concerning that the provincial government would seek to change some of the authorities and discretion that's exercised by municipalities. The Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, on several occasions at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, has talked about a maturing relationship between the province and the municipalities, and to recognize the mature level of government that municipalities are. To make a move like this works counter to that, and it's very concerning. I think London has proven quite well that the option of a ranked ballot, it can be effective. It can be administered quite effectively and appropriately, and return similar results or process to a first past the post election. It's different, and that's concerning to some, but it is effective, it's valid, and it has had an effect that I think has certainly galvanized and brought to the fore a lot of the other communities within of the 444 municipalities of Ontario. There's been a fair amount of interest. Certainly when we go to AMO conferences, a lot of people ask us about our experience with the election, but also several others have passed referendums on moving towards ranked ballots for the upcoming 2022 election. So I share the concerns expressed by Councillors Morgan and Deputy Mayor Helmer, and I think this is an important motion to pass, regardless of what your stance is on the ranked ballot system in its own right. I think it's important that we re-emphasize the importance of the ability for municipalities to make its decision in this matter.
Thank you. Councillor Squire.
I'm going to not speak for very long. I'm not going to relitigate or re-argue the ranked ballot or whether I agree with it or don't agree with it. It's just I made a vote several years ago. I did not support ranked balloting, largely for the reasons of the campaign that supported the ranked balloting, not from this council chamber, but from a lot of people outside of the council chamber. So I'm going to vote against this, but this is not for me an issue that I, it's not something that is top of mind of myself or even the people in the City of London. I appreciate why the motion's being brought. I understand why it's being brought. It's just, I like to be consistent in my votes. I didn't support ranked balloting before. I'm not going to support it now. But when a vote is taken, and it was taken last time, I can understand why the my colleagues want to continue to support the position that they had on ranked balloting. So I have no problem with the motion, but I can't support it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm going to pick off and then completely diverge from what Councillor Squire just said. I don't think that changes to the Municipal Act by the province are top of mind for residents in any municipality right now. And I actually find that this is something that's been added to an Ontario Recovery Act that actually needs to be debated in its own forum, not as part of a COVID recovery bill. But that commentary aside, although I was not here to support the move to ranked ballots as a councillor in the last council term, I unequivocally support them. I'll pick a word that I can actually pronounce. I fully support them. And I think that they've been a very good thing for the democratic system in London. And I think that other communities pursuing them are making that choice on their own. And to what Councillor Turner said, regardless of whether you support ranked ballots or not, local decision-making authority matters. And it's very frustrating for me to hear from the provincial government on one day that they're not happy with the federal government perhaps stepping into provincial jurisdiction, and then a day or two later are stepping into municipal jurisdiction. I just think that this is a great motion because I think we need to express ourselves on this very clearly. At best, I would like to see the province, not take this course at all. But certainly if they're going to take this course, then London's needs and London's actions to date should be considered. I think that the previous council acted in very good faith when they made these changes based on the provincial regulations that were in place. And while the province certainly has the authority to not follow the mandate of a previous government, doing so has some implications to a city that acted within the legal framework that existed at the time, and they should be prepared to step forward and compensate us if, in fact, they're going to force this change through. So I think there's a really detailed and important discussion to be had here. I hope the province doesn't rush this through. And I want to thank both Deputy Mayor Helmer and Deputy Mayor-elect Morgan for teaming up on this and bringing this forward. It's got my support, and I hope it'll have everyone's support, although I think that Councillor Squire may disagree.
Thank you. I'd like to unequivocally turn now to Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Your Worship, for recognizing me and really appreciate an opportunity here. First of all, I want to thank Deputy Mayor Helmer and Councillor Morgan for bringing this forward because this is a concern for all municipalities in Ontario. Regardless of what you think about ranked ballots or not, it is a change that has come very sudden to municipalities. And it's something that we need to really consider as municipalities to have the flexibility and opportunities to have those conversations within our municipality and the right to move forward or not. On ranked ballots, I'd just like to say that I did not support ranked ballots when this came forward a number of years ago. And the reason I did not support it is that I heard loud and clear from my community that the costs were quite high. And so we have invested quite a bit of money in ranked ballots. Took a lot of work, time, and energy from this municipality and City Clerk's office to implement it. And as I was campaigning and speaking about ranked ballots and the changes, I did hear from my community that it was a way, it was a different way to do things and a change. And it was embraced at the end by the community. And it is something that as we have invested in ranked ballots, I do not want to lose that investment and the cost. Who knows where this will go? I also want to point out to my colleagues that we're not the only municipality we have done ranked ballots, but other municipalities are looking at ranked ballots. There is the municipality of Kingston and Cambridge that have already done a referendum to do ranked ballots. And there are other municipalities looking at putting forward a referendum on the 2022 ballot as well to look into ranked ballots. So I strongly support the importance of B in particular, that municipalities, we should have that flexibility to determine how we move forward with our elections, and I'm fully supportive of this motion going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you, Worship. So for me, this is a matter of self-determination, and I think it's important that a municipality can decide for themselves, because they can decide. This is a decision that can be made at a level of the municipality, how we're going to hold our own elections, and I think it's fine that we do. I don't want that ability to decide be taken away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Your Worship. So obviously, as the seconder, I'm supportive of the motion. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Helmer for his work on helping craft it and pull it together in a short time frame, given the how fast the province is moving on this. I want to start by saying that the province of Ontario and the Premier and his local team in our region have been excellent partners, great partners for local municipalities. Through the delivery of the Safe Restart funding, which was critical to London being able to balance its books in 2020, to their advocacy and work on issues with the federal government to get support delivered to both our residents and our businesses in a timely fashion. And so I believe we have crafted out a great working relationship with the provincial government, and they have been a great supporter of municipalities across the province. So I was disappointed when I saw the approach taken on this particular item, given the level of consultation that led to the change in the first place. And I think that the motion is meant to be very respectful to the process. The first section is meant to respond to changes that a level of government is making to an act that impacts municipalities, and particularly the City of London. The second part is really about the mayor engaging on our particular issue and circumstance in the City of London, which is different from the 443 other municipalities across the province. Whereas a change to ranked ballots may incur costs to them, we're actually in the opposite situation where we have made investments, and a change back would be where we would incur costs and extra effort. So 2 is meant to deal with that, and 3 is meant to direct the clerk to do some work to determine what that would look like should we be in the situation of having to deal with it. But I want to say, and some of my colleagues have spoken very well, behind this is the principle of local decision-making. And I think Premier Ford has spoke very well on the province empowering municipalities to be able to make local decisions and for the province to get out of the way from time to time. And this doesn't fit with those statements. And I'm hoping that some time to reflect as the bill is debated and works its way through the provincial legislature will cause a change in direction on this. Certainly, this is not something we need to do now, and it's certainly something that could be considered later by the provincial government. It is a single line in a piece of important legislation related to the pandemic, and it came as a surprise to many. So I certainly am looking forward to our continued partnership with the provincial government as we move into recovery, and I'm hopeful that they will take a look at local decision-making and its importance to the residents of Ontario as they consider whether or not to proceed with this particular act, or this particular portion of the act.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of things, and I appreciate the comments from my colleagues. One is to pick up on what Councillor Morgan was just saying. We spend a lot of time talking about this change to ranked ballots. We spend a lot of money to do the consultation and education around the switch. And those were one-time costs that we don't have to incur all the time. And it seems to me to be very wasteful to throw away that investment in making the change after just one election. Doubly so if we were forced to do it by a different level of government. And it's not that long ago that I talked to conservatives pretty regularly about the principle of subsidiarity. And this is a very core piece of conservative political philosophy, is that the level of government that's closest to the issue should be the one that is making the decision. And, I think the conservative members of caucus need to talk to the party leadership about just dropping this idea. There's no problem letting municipalities choose for themselves whether they want to have a ranked ballot or not. It doesn't need to be stopped. Municipalities, if they want to switch, they should be allowed to switch. And that is a good system, the system we have right now. It can be left alone. We have a lot of real problems that we do have to work on, that I think people are much more concerned about than this, which is a non-problem, and frankly is creating problems for us because we have already made the decision to switch. So I hope that they'll reconsider. I think there's lots of great people in the Conservative caucus, and I hope they can talk to the party leadership and just convince them that they should drop this idea altogether. That's my first preference. My second preference would be that they don't force us to switch. It's one thing to say, look, we're going to hit a pause on changing electoral systems in the middle of the pandemic. We can do that again in the future when things are a bit more back to normal. But for London, not changing means we just stay with ranked ballots. And that would be my second preference. And I think it's a good example of how you can have your first preference and you can have your second preference. And I think that's a very simple thing that could be done. On the issue of cost, which I've certainly seen a lot of concern about, even if you include all the costs we incurred, and the consultation, the auditing we had to do, the cost per elector for the switch to ranked ballots was $7 and 17 cents. That's the total cost of the whole election, including ranked ballots. The change was like $2 per elector. The provincial election cost $12.53 per elector. So it's not that one electoral system is cheaper than the other. It's that one of them collects more information than the other. And, we have to spend the money that needs to be spent to run an election properly. And I don't know about anybody else, but elections is not the place where I'm like, let's see if we can cut costs and contain things there. Those happen every 4 years and they better be done right. And they're an important thing. So I hope that colleagues will support as many parts of this motion as you can, even if it's just that principle that it should be up to the municipalities to make the decision, because I think that's the key one. And I think that that's the message we have to send to the province, is that it really should be left in the hands of the municipal councils and the people in those areas, whether they want to switch to ranked ballots or not.
Thank you. Any other final comments or questions? Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add my thanks to Deputy Mayor Helmer and Councillor Morgan for taking this on. And I also agree with Councillor Morgan that it's been done very respectfully. And I know that there is some sensitivity from other levels of government when they feel that municipalities are straying into their lane. And I agree with the comments that have been made so far, that this really should be left up to the individual municipality. The truth of the matter is, though, until this change was made really recently, it wasn't left up to individual municipalities. So what's being proposed at the provincial level is to go back to that previous model of not allowing municipalities that kind of self-determination when it comes to how our local elections are run. Notwithstanding the merits or whatever people see the detractors for the method itself of ranked balloting, it's something that we took on here in London, and it's something that our staff did very well. I continue to see reports in the media, however, what the cost was to switch, and I do believe, based on what I've seen, is that is what some in the media are doing are exactly what Deputy Mayor Helmer said in the beginning of his rundown of the cost, is they're including all of the costs in the election, or a lot of the new changes that had to take place that had nothing to do with ranked ballots. So for example, additional tabulators, if I recall correctly, had to be purchased, and they would have been purchased regardless of ranked ballots or not, because of additional polling sites and things like that. There were changes made in that way. And so investments needed to be made regardless, and not all of the additional costs had to do with ranked ballots. So without seeking any changes in this, I'm wondering in that C part, if the clerks can hear what I'm saying, and hopefully also give us information on what the actual costs were, what the additional costs were to change over to ranked balloting, so that we have a clear, and so that the City of London has a clear understanding of what the investment actually was. And I don't think it's as large as what the media are reporting. Secondly, when there's a change in government, it's understandable that the new government wants to put their imprint on things. But often when there's a change in government, there isn't a big change at the staff level. A number of staff in the different ministries stay on. So I wonder if there's an opportunity there for city staff to have conversations, and maybe it's already taken place at that level, staff to staff, on just to give the bureaucracy at the provincial level an understanding of what London did, what we went through, the success we had, and that sort of thing, so that this doesn't seem like the big scary monster that I think some people think it is. But those are just my comments. I'm very supportive of this motion. I'm very supportive of municipalities having that level of self-determination in our what affects us locally, to be able to determine how we approach our issues and our problems. And I would like to see the province giving more leeway to municipalities and not less.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, and the motion passes 14-1.
Thank you, colleagues. I'll turn your attention to bylaws now. Item 13 on the agenda. We are going to be dealing with bills 310 through 333 inclusive. And I'll be looking for a mover and seconder for introduction and first reading of those bills. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Van Meerbergen, seconded by Councillor Hillier. We will call the vote.
Your Worship?
Yes, please. Sorry. Councillor Turner, go ahead.
Could I have 13.16 pulled? That's bylaw 324.
Thank you. I was looking through the bills to see if there were some to be pulled, so I will just ask the question. Thank you for bringing that up. We will separate out Bill 324. Are there any other bills that we need to deal with separately? Seeing none, then I will come back and I will look for a mover and seconder, and I'll come back to the mover and seconder to see if you will support the first reading, introduction, first reading of bills 310 through 323 and 325 through 333. So I'll look to Councillor Van Meerbergen if you're comfortable with that. And he's saying yes. Councillor Lehman? Yes. We'll call the question. I should have sent you the note afterwards, after this. Yes.
Councillor Van Holst. Closing the vote and the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. I'll look for a mover and seconder for second reading of bills 310 through 323 and 325 through 333. Moved by Councillor Pelosa, seconded by, thank you, Councillor Hillier. Any comments or discussion? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to make a comment on Bill 311, which is a bylaw to appoint a deputy mayor for the City of London and to repeal a bylaw to appoint a deputy mayor for the City of London. I didn't speak at the SPPC meeting, mainly because my name was in the motion and I felt it was appropriate just to sit back and let my colleagues have an important dialogue about this. But there was one thing that I wanted to say that I couldn't because I wasn't participating in the discussion, and that was a few comments about the work Deputy Mayor Helmer has done, because part of this bylaw comes into effect on December 1st, is ending his term as Deputy Mayor, and I wanted to recognize the really important work that Deputy Mayor Helmer has done over the course of his 2 years. We had a new council with new colleagues, and he had to take on a role that was newly structured and be the first deputy mayor under the new provisions of the way we had structured it. And as if that wasn't challenge enough, a pandemic was thrown in the mix, and to work closely with the mayor, a new mayor, I might add, to get him up to speed, and as well as a pandemic. And when that pandemic came along, certainly there was an important role to play. And Deputy Mayor Helmer led many of the discussions for the Mayor's Recovery Network work, and did so admirably and with the respect of many in the community to pull that important work together, work that will continue into and throughout the next year as well as we move into transitioning that to the London Recovery Network. So I certainly think he's left some very big shoes to fill. He's performed the role admirably and with the utmost respect. And I wanted to share those comments today to him as a colleague. Certainly with my pending appointment to this position, I certainly appreciate the trust of both the mayor as well as all of my colleagues on council, and will do my very best to perform as admirably in the position as Deputy Mayor Helmer has. So thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? I might mention, without trying to take the floor, but as just as a point of clarification, that Deputy Mayor will be in this position to the end of November. We'll have, I hope, some opportunity to say some nice things about him as we have through the first 2 years, or at least the last week or so, particularly. So appreciate that, Councillor Morgan. And any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Councillor Hillier.
I vote yes. It's not coming up again. Thank you.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. I'll look for a mover and seconder of third reading and enactment of bills 310 through 323 and 325 through 333. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Lewis. We'll call the question.
Just having some technical difficulties. Deputy Mayor Helmer, Councillor Pelosa, and Councillor Hillier.
I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. I will now turn your attention to bylaw 324. I will look for a mover and a seconder for the introduction and first reading of Bill 324. Moved by Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Lehman. We'll call the question.
We apologize for the slowness of the system tonight. They did some updates and it's moving slowly for us, so we thank you for your patience. Councillor Van Holst. Closing the vote and the motion carries 12-3.
Thank you. I'll now look for a mover and seconder of second reading for Bill 324. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Hillier. Thank you. Comments or questions? Comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Deputy Mayor Helmer and Councillor Hopkins. Closing the vote, the motion carries 12-3.
Colleagues, I'll look now for a mover and seconder for third reading and enactment of Bill 324. Moved by Councillor Hillier, seconded by Deputy Mayor Helmer. We'll call the question.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 12-3.
Thank you, colleagues. Before we move into closed session, I'll ask the clerk to identify broadly what we are going into closed session to deal with, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are going in closed session for two matters. The first matter is a matter pertaining to the proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, including communications necessary for that purpose, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, commercial and financial information that belongs to the municipality and has monetary value or potential monetary value, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. And the second item is a matter pertaining to the proposed pending or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Thank you. I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ploza, seconded by Councillor Hopkins. We'll call the question.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 15-0.
Thank you. As we move into closed session, I'll mention to the public that we will be coming out of closed session where we will have a report from that. And colleagues will just take us a couple of minutes to adjust to the closed session component. Thank you.